that's why you want scientists and
I think
engineers.
it's true. It's true.
So we've been at this for a while now. We've had plenty of victories. We've had some defeats, but the platform has evolved into something which seems to have a head of steam. Like, what does it look like 5 or 10 years from now?
No, I think absolutely right, Peter. I think the victories have been satisfying, but I think there's so much more we still can do in terms of delivering the types of support that deep tech companies need to really flourish. And I think we're really starting to hit a cadence now of, the types of and the ways that we can help them develop and continue to grow our team to make sure we have the right stuff.
So why do you think other venture firms don't look like this?
This looks weird. It's very unusual. In venture, I think the thought was you provide money and advice, but you typically didn't see a lot of physical embodiment of the support that you provided to a company. And I think for us, having been founders in technology and having worked in the industry for a long time, we see all the different support infrastructure that companies need, as well as they need different things at different parts in their evolution. And I think the nice thing here is being technologists ourselves, we're not scared of playing with technologies and trying to cozy up alongside our entrepreneurs to figure out how we can help.
I also think that venture in the Valley has gotten soft with, there's an app for that. And they've grown up in for a decade or two, not having to worry about, combining bits and atoms and worrying about the physical layer. It's really where Silicon Valley started, working with silicon and, driving technology through physical products. But, today that's not where venture spends their time.
And sometimes the question is, if you weren't investing, what would you be doing? And I think spending a lot of time, in a shop like this and building things, and we get to help entrepreneurs pursue those kinds of creations, cheering them on from behind, supporting with capital, but also hopefully with insights and empathy, because we're kind of steeped in technology and company creation. I think the environment speaks to that, right? That we want to be surrounded by the tools of creation in a way that hopefully inspires them. I know it inspires me. And so I think that being in an environment where you can draw that kind of inspiration, I think is also something that's a little bit different, but I really enjoy about what we've created.
So how do we measure success? Like, how do we know that we did the right thing 5 or 10 years from now? Like, what are the metrics, or what are the outcomes that will give us confidence that we're doing the right thing?
I mean, the easy ones are, when we make the impact in the world that we want to make, when we actually bring forward the future and create the world we want to live in. I think there's a lot of areas where we can see that happening, whether it's in engineered biology, whether it's in, automation, and whether it's in next-gen compute.
It certainly involves cash on cash for our LPs as well. We're privileged to have been entrusted to invest their money, and doing a good job on that is a defining characteristic for sure.
We certainly need to generate outsized returns, but it's very empowering to be working on areas that really matter and that can make that positive difference in the world. The other thing that I love is when I go to an event where a lot of entrepreneurs are there and they say, wow, we've heard how incredibly helpful you were to your portfolio companies. Or when I talk to our portfolio company founders, and the most common thing I hear is, you guys are so unlike any other venture firm. You're my first call when I've got an issue, and I have confidence that when I call you, you're going to be able to help me figure something out.
So do we take enough risk, do you think? We always tell people we like investing in things that almost certainly won't work, right? That will be consequential if they do, but too many of them seem to work. So are we...
I think we don't actually do that. I think we invest in things that other people believe will almost certainly not work, but underwrite the technologies to a degree that we're pretty confident that the technology is feasible and this is the team to do it, and it'll have a big impact if we make that change, or if we can make that bet. So
Yeah.
We certainly take contrarian bets. I mean, a lot of the things that we invest in, we invest before the general investment community thinks it's a sexy area. Quantum computing being a great example. Even, secure containers before they were confidential computing, before it was recognized. So I think we go in early. But I think, one of the things that I'm very proud of is the diligence process, both the discussions that we all have when we're talking to an entrepreneur. I think each of us brings very complementary skills, questions, ideas, so that we robustly both discuss and diligence a company before we go in. I certainly know, based on my experience, our diligence process is much more thorough, but also in different areas. It's not just, hey, let's look at the financial model and let's call a few references. It's a much deeper, very thorough diligence process.
And I think since we definitely don't invest in impossible, or try very hard not to invest in impossible. So difficult or really hard or improbable is just a matter of time and money. We know it's doable. We know the market exists if it, when it's done. Yes, we may make mistakes and invest too early, and it takes longer than we like. But, I think the risk of absolute failure is pretty low in a lot of our investments.
So should we push that? Should we do some crazier things, or do some things which
I
are?
think we've got lots of crazy already.
True.
And
I think we're moving into areas like engineered biology and therapeutics, where you're going to have more failures because it's so heavily regulated. You have a certain window to get through a clinical trial, and so even if the technology is fundamentally sound, you can have failures, and you're kind of threading a different kind of needle there. I think we're doing more things that have that kind of sensitivity in different areas.
yeah, but better than most that we're doing platforms there. So if one thing doesn't make it through clinical trials for that platform, doesn't mean that another one won't. So it's a kind of failure, but
If you can get the capital to
Right.
have multiple shots on goal, I think the platform aspects in therapeutics probably just give you opportunity for more impact if you succeed. It probably doesn't give you many more shots on goal to fail, given how the capital markets work for that, and just the timelines on the regulatory side.
so you just have more choices of which shot to take.
Well, so ideally you have choices on which shot to take. I mean, it's getting into a deeper discussion, I think, on that kind of platform therapeutic side. We're investing in companies that are making kind of biology and the engineering of biology kind of more predictable and just more like engineering than kind of artisanal discovery, and relying on new tools, machine learning, a lot of automation, new assays to kind of feed that pipeline of that compute pipeline. And so I think that may very well change the risk of an individual asset to be a lot less, and that'll be really rewarding if it's true. But it's really more on the other side of that first success. How big can this be? Is this just a one asset company that affects a small number of patients, or something that is going to impact people across a variety of indications in a variety of therapeutic areas, and just have a huge impact on society? So I think it's interesting. Deep tech, I think, is somewhat unique among a lot of kind of venture types, in that the subsectors of where you invest are always changing. I mean, there's some that are kind of evergreen, like maybe next-gen compute and engineered biology, perhaps, but it's a function of inflection points in both the technology maturity and how they're coming together to change a particular subsector. And then also, maybe that'll be played out, maybe it gets too crowded, and maybe we're just in kind of a coasting point with that, and we have to move on. So, and then I think it also varies, like some subsectors are worth investing in, but don't have enough, I think of them as multi-billion-dollar outcomes to support, many investments over a long period of time, but it's still something that we can have a unique specialty in and find the exceptional opportunities. And like aerospace is one of those where, there's probably one of those per fund, unlike, engineered biology or next-gen computer automation, where there's easily multiple investments per fund that totally make sense to have really big outcomes.
Yeah, it has to be both a company that, you know, meets the principles that technology is what defines it, that you have exceptional founders going after a huge opportunity. And so there's, I think whole-scale sector expansion is not frequent, but that still
usually
means that you'd find one company here, one company there that could be expanding the sector on sort of a case-by-case basis, as opposed to deciding that thematically there's going to be an entirely new thrust, as say engineered biology has, or decarbonization is kind of now emerging.
But even then, it's roadmaps of adjacencies to our core areas. So
Yeah. I mean, one powerful mechanism, right? I mean, looking over the shoulders of the PsiQuantum guys to see what the Fortune 50 intend to do with them, you're like, oh my God, that's a thing, right? Or working with people decarbonizing aviation to realize, well, where's the hydrogen going to come from, and what are the mechanisms, and what are the investable opportunities there? And then you bump into some mining people, and they mention, oh, we only know where there's a fraction of the materials we need to electrify the economy are coming from, and that's a real problem. And suddenly you're investing in muon tomography to find, the surface deposits of copper and uranium and so on.
What are areas that we haven't invested in yet, but that we're waiting for a great company to come along and break through? So sort of expansion areas or persistent problems in the sectors that we have focused on or that we would like to expand into. What are some of the next problems to be solved? We wish we could find companies.
Personally, I love ocean tech as a kind of untapped opportunity. We've done a good job of taking over all the land mass, either for people or for food.
And have companies that help with that in various ways.
And we're going to continue to have more people, and we're not going to have more land. So the ocean is a fantastic place to think about for alternate sources of protein. And we obviously have to be able to do that in a sustainable way. And I think that the technology is going to be a lever there. I think that, whether it's seaweed that creates that protein, whether it's the ability to grow crops on saltwater, I think we've got a lot of land, a lot of planet surface that we're not taking advantage of.
I mean, sometimes it's specific technologies that are really fulcrum technologies, like improved high temperature superconductors are an easy one, where we have spent a significant amount of time trying to see when and if that is ready to kind of come out of the academic lab, and haven't found that yet, but that's something that'll have a huge impact. And as soon as it's ready, we want to be on top of that one.
Yeah, no, there's tons of materials, tons of industrial processes which need to be carbonized, right? So steel is a big one, and watching what the Fortescue guys are doing in Australia and understanding the scale and consequence for decarbonization, for getting steel right, I think is super interesting. Fusion, of course, ton of money going into fusion. Wild lack of correlation between technical merit and valuations there, but there are some converging technologies like supercomputers and high temperature superconductors, which are making some of those architectures investable.
Still want my space elevator.
Well, that may be a fun.
You don't want a space elevator?
I want a space elevator. It's just physics, right?
Your jetpack.
No, you don't need the jetpack if you have the space elevator. That's where your materials come in.
Yeah, look, I think
Can you get PsiQuantum on that, please?
that our adaptive immune system, it's a software problem, right? That we're chipping away at, but
we have companies working on that.
Well, we have some companies working on that. So it's such a target-rich environment, right? There are so many opportunities to do important work where each fundamental industrial sequencing platform or quantum computing platform or next-gen compute platform we build, we're exposed to this nexus of opportunity that I think only accelerates as we have more and more of those fundamental platform technologies in the portfolio. So I don't think we're going to run out of stuff that's super interesting to invest in. I know there's stuff that I don't think we'll ever return to, where the figure of merit is not underwriting technical risk or not doing important transformative technologies that can not only return a bunch of capital to our investors, but not make the world a shittier place. But even within those constraints, there's plenty of places to deploy a lot of capital to do something worthwhile.
So what's the venture team brought to you in terms of new and interesting thinking over the last 12 months? And how has the team evolved to be able to bring in new thinking to our process?
Well, the nice thing about having domain experts in the venture team is they will bring you things you're like, wait, that's a thing? Say that again, like what the hell? And they work with and know people who are doing crazy pants, cutting edge technology, which you would not be exposed to outside a context like this. And I think that's super powerful, and just turning over every rock and going to every professor and looking at every university to figure out, I didn't realize that was a thing. I didn't realize that was progressed enough to be investable. And having a bunch of smart people on the ground makes all the difference in discovering that sort of stuff.
I mean, and I think Playground's also unusually collaborative as a venture firm. And so you're benefiting from all of those conversations about the companies we're looking about the roadmaps we're building, about the technologies that we're excited about. And so I think that's, that is an ongoing process that, fuels our portfolio and our process and our success going forward. So
I'm having so much fun learning about all the new decarbonization technologies and all the different components, both on the supply and the demand side. I thought we had hit kind of a clean tech winter a few years ago, and now there's so many great new technologies and ideas. I think it's incredible.
But yeah, I mean, our team is a combination of folks with PhDs, folks with industry experience, folks who come from a banking background. And so all of those different perspectives, when we talked a little bit about having different perspectives among the partners, but that's like turned up to 11 across the team.
Yeah.
Yep, and they do a bunch of work, which is nice. But that hybrid vigor, right? The domain,
Yes.
the mix of domain expertise, and they teach each other and they teach us, and that's been super powerful.
And the networks they bring to it, both for diligence as well as sourcing, and in company building as well, follow-on investors. I think that ideally we're greater than the sum of the parts as we expand the team.
And Jory, you might want to talk about how the technical team, brought you a machine learning paper that actually pointed in the direction of an engineered biology company.
Well, sure. I mean, that's a longer story that probably merits editing down. That's a longer story, but I think one experience I had recently was, one of our engineers, who's a machine learning expert, I was asking him about a company I was interested in that was doing improved enzyme design, kind of had a high throughput automated kind of lab system and some machine learning that they were trying to apply. And he's like trying to patiently explain to me, like, well, Jory, there's normal machine learning problems, and there's really, really hard machine learning problems, and there's normal machine learning teams, and there's really special machine learning teams. This company you're looking at, that's a really hard special machine learning problem with a normal machine learning team, and that might not work. But here's a paper you can read from this kid at Stanford, and this is a really special ML team working on a really hard, really special ML problem. And so we tracked that person down who had founded a company, and then he really wasn't interested in talking to investors at that point. And so our machine learning specialist and our associate Ben, who has a PhD in bioengineering from Stanford, started just a light conversation with him in email, just questions that were good questions on both the compute and the biology side that really caught his interest. And then over about a year, he opened up and shared more material, and then came to us first when he was raising his Series A. And so that kind of progression, multidisciplinary team, able to go really deep with the entrepreneurs in ways that the entrepreneurs kind of recognize as interesting and appreciation for what they are building. And so that's why it makes it easy for us to support them, because they trust us and we are genuinely interested and engaged in what they're really building, not just, oh, could this be valuable or not, on some dollar merit, but is this really a foundational change in the science and the technology? So,
And I think just tying that back to when talking about this space that we're in now, we really like that about the companies we engage with. We have a true appreciation for the tech they're building, the journey of the founder, building a technical company. That's I think what we typically seek out, and hopefully where we're differentiated, that we're good investors for those kinds of companies. And I think that's a great example to show it.
Yeah, and imagine trying to do that when it's a hot deal and you have 15 minutes to get them a term sheet, and it's like, it's such a powerful, differentiated approach to getting it done.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite story about the space still goes back to like 2015, 2016 when we were starting, and the Psi Quantum was just 3 professors contemplating their first round. And I remember touring them through the facility, and they saw the machine shop, and it was such an unexpected reaction. They were like, "Oh, we knew you were our people when we saw the machine shop." I'm like, the machine shop at one level has nothing to do with building quantum computers using silicon photonics, right? But on the other hand, that hardware, software nexus, that interface where you're building real things, they were going to have to build real things.
Yep.
And they knew they needed someone who understood that was going to be difficult but rewarding and could underwrite that.
Nerd vibes. Nerd vibes go a long way.
Yeah.
So they did actually built a bunch of optical table stuff back in the day when
We've done actually a surprising amount of highly technical fabrication in this shop. We usually try to keep it to just prototyping, but there's definitely some shipping products in the world that have parts out of this lab.
What are some of the milestones that we look forward to our companies achieving in public kinds of ways in the next year, in 2023?
Well, so the one that's top of mind is the first commercially relevant hydrogen plane flying very soon, that everybody can wring their hands about whether hydrogen will work or whether you can actually make a plane fly. And it's really hard to deny it when it's overhead. And that's happening within a very small number of weeks. So really looking forward to that. And the fact that it won't take very long to get that thing into commercial service is super, super exciting.
It's also compelling that the economics just make so much sense for airlines.
And that a lot of people have voted with their checkbooks to order these planes. So, things are impossible until they're not. But flying in the air is something that's kind of hard to fake, right? It's not like Elizabeth Holmes describing, what the machine is going to do. The thing is flying, and you can see it. Super, super excited about that.
Anything else flying soon?
We got a lot. Well, there's relativity space, which is will be shortly making the first launch attempt of the first 3D printed orbital class rocket, also likely the first Methalox engine. We'll see they're in competition with SpaceX. The Starship also uses Methalox, and so that's going to be a big milestone. But I think there's also kind of at a much smaller scale, Strand Therapeutics, which is doing kind of next-gen mRNA therapies targeting cancer. They're going to be in the next year dosing their first human with their first mRNA cancer drug. And so that's going to be a huge, huge milestone as well. Oh, and Ultima Genomics is going to general availability with their sequencer, their gene sequencer, which is radically lowering the cost of gene sequencing. And I like, there was I can't remember who tweeted this, but someone thanked Ultima and BGI for forcing Illumina to finally lower the cost of their sequencer. It's still kind of at least 2 to 3x more expensive than Ultima's, but they're at least moving in the right direction now.
Our companies move markets.
Yes.
Very good.
Personally, I'm excited about the next generation of our robotic friends coming out in 23 and being in customers' buildings doing real work.
When we look back from the future and we reflect on the dangerous challenge of making predictions, what do you think our companies will mean to the world? What do you think the pillars that we build, the companies that we create, what do you think their role will be in civilization, right? Will Playground be known for a foundry of transformative companies that really move the needle?
I mean, I think one, we talked a little bit about Ultimate Genomics. I think their path to making genome sequencing, almost free is going to change personalized medicine in a way that, will change every doctor's visit, every home health encounter, and allow us to, regain some agency over our biology.
And also what that means for drug development and for sort of biology writ large. I mean, imagine sequencing is free. Who would take advantage of that? I mean, it's the potential for that's almost unbounded.
I'm excited about cleaner, more efficient transportation, not just hydrogen, but all the other things that we determined. There's still many things to electrify. There's still many opportunities to remove humans from a potential point of failure. But I think we're going to see a lot more exciting modes of transportation.
In life sciences, we certainly have companies that are working across a pretty broad range of therapeutics, which I think we'll look back and see a number of breakthroughs that how our companies, our portfolio companies, really changed the trajectory of treatment for a number of really challenging diseases, cancers, a variety of types. I think that's going to be fantastic.
I was thinking just generally about a post-scarcity future where we mitigated climate change and didn't live in fear of existential destruction and such.
Light thoughts.
Yeah, no.
I mean, we want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem when we look back. Right? So, and the solution that worked, not just, oh, well, you were tilting at windmills, but in technologies where that's going to have to come from now.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, for me, it is demonstrating that there are so many paths forward that are not only things that are material to everybody's lives, but also have the economics behind them to attract the capital in order to do big things, right? That some of these things do require eye-watering amounts of capital, but if you can show that there's value that's created, that I think it's a great conduit for capital that is far more worthy than things we're spending it on today. And that there are so many underappreciated points of leverage and opportunities to deploy that capital against stuff, which will really change the experience of humanity across all kinds of different domains. And I want to have a disproportionate role in doing that.
Certainly investing at the earliest stages of those kinds of companies, I think allows us to have an outsized impact that as those increasingly larger and larger rounds need to come together, that we were there when it was so much less certain, but we showed the faith and we played a role in those companies breaking through. I think that's a pretty special place to operate.